Number one is I know we have a fraud squad, and we do catch people who get money fraudulently, but do we have a system in place to recuperate the money that's gotten fraudulent?
Those are called overpayments, and yes, there's a collection procedure for that. And it's pretty formalized, and it's according to a person's means to recover. If they are then later approved to continue with assistance, or they're disqualified and come back later, a portion of the benefits is recovered on an ongoing basis. But basic services must continue, generally speaking, the people who go ahead and feed the children. I mean, that is what the mandate of social services is. There's a portion that can be up to 10%, depending on hardship, maybe 5% a month that would be recovered.
My second question is, and I brought this to the table before, how many, or what percentage of the people we have in social housing have an income to be able to afford an apartment on their own instead of living in social housing?
So I don't know the number of people who are at, we call that maximum rent. There are two reasons for that. One is that they may have been housed at a lower income, and then since then their full old age pension and gains have come in. And a couple on old age pension and gains could afford what's considered the maximum rent, which is sort of the low end of market for the community, and that's established by the CMHC and the province. And there isn't a mechanism to disqualify a person from remaining. So in other words, you can't evict somebody for having too much income. And the Landlord and Tenant Act or the Residential Tenancies Act wouldn't allow that. There was also a period in which the province encouraged mixed type housing, and the reason for that was to balance budgets for one thing, so that the revenue coming in to a social net housing landlord was enhanced somewhat by the people who could afford to pay. But there was also a recognition that in some communities it made sense to have a variety of household types, so that you had people from various economic backgrounds living in a community instead of full, and they call that RGI, rent to income. Instead of 100% RGI, you had a mix. So that was the rationale along the way to allow that sort of mix in social housing. But there isn't a mechanism to force someone to leave if their income puts them in a position where they no longer need a subsidy as such.
I think my question was at the beginning was, there were people put into the apartments when they were first built, just to fill the building.
Yeah, and that was something the province deliberately did and allowed to happen. Yeah, so that the revenues would be somewhat, or the subsidies required would be somewhat less for those buildings, because some of the people could afford to pay a full rent.
Thank you.
Let's get a question.
Yeah, just a question, sort of go a little bit further in regards to what we refer to, or what's been referred to as the working poor. So although these are benefits that are paid out to individuals, that would be the maximum benefits. So certainly you do have additional people that are on the rolls that receive a lesser amount.
Yes, because of employment income?
Yes, yes. So when you take a look at these people who are out on the lower income scale, and if we're looking at a single individual that works part-time and makes $300, let's say, a month, working part-time, when he would apply for supplementary assistance, would you provide him up to $592?
No. So there's and it's a really complicated calculation, but there's a certain amount a person is allowed to make, and it's a percentage of their eligibility. So, as I say, it's rather complicated. There's a certain amount that a person is allowed to earn no recovery. And then after that, it's 50% of what a person earns, up to the point where they no longer need any subsidy at all. And so there's that, and there's a 6-month period after a person starts working where some supports continue, particularly if it's a family situation where there are children and they have a drug card, and maybe there's ongoing medical or something like that. So there's sort of a transition period off assistance, so the person, once they're off and working, then is able to stand on their own very much. But So it isn't a dollar for dollar penalty to go to work. In fact, there's all kinds of reasons to go to work, and the assistance is there to help you with that.
All right, can I ask you one, which is a good question, in the table you have on page 5, is there one particular case type that's increasing, or is there a case type that's decreasing that is very noticeable, has been very noticeable in the last little while?
So when you have an economic downturn, there are a couple of things that happen. You see some people who are what we describe as precarious workers. In other words, they were part-time workers or they were seasonal workers. So they'll be coming back, but they're on for 3 or 4 months and then they're off again. There's sort of a revolving door. You also sometimes then see some marital splits, so that a family is struggling, things are not able to continue, and then so what you would have would be a marital split where there's often it'll be a mother and the children coming in for assistance, and the goal then when you see that particular group coming in, and right now we also have an industry in town closed up, and so you see some of the people who are in on an interim basis awaiting PI, so there's support for that sort of thing. So you'll see those clusters, and the goal with each of those circumstances is to assist them. And we do have people whose job it is to help them get any other supports for which they're eligible. So if they should be applying for WSID, or they could be applying for a disability pension or age support through the Family Responsibility Office, we have people who will help them go after those supports.
Your role and the role of your council in this community is to help.
And maximize provincial revenue.
Thank you. Carry on.
Dog hostels was a question. It is one of the programs that isn't mandatory in the community. However, in 2007, our city council decided to continue with it. So here are the brief facts about domiciliary hostels. That's page 6. So that's another one where for the city's contribution of about $232,000 a year, the benefit to the community and to residents of the community is about $1.7 million. And that helps 213 clients on an ongoing basis, and also 113 crisis beds. So those would be people who had a temporary emergency in terms of accommodation. They might have been referred through the police service, they might have been referred through the mental health workers, or even hospital emergency, people who are really in a crisis. And this program allows us to work with some community partners to find them accommodation on a short-term basis, and within 5 days then they're evaluated and figure out next steps.
I have a question from Councilor Shorty.